So we're live, and hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Akashic Business Wisdom Show, another inspiring conversation with Noona and Nafousi. I'm so delighted to have you here, Noona. It's great for us to be having this conversation. Hello.
No, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honoured you've invited me as well. Thank you.
Oh, so welcome. We have just been having a bit of a chit chat about stuff, and we've had a powerful conversation a few months back, and we were like saying, oh my goodness, this date feels so far away, and here we are, like in winter in London. But yeah, for those of you that don't know me, I'm Natasha Nicole Harris. I'm an intuitive business coach, mentor, healer, working with the wisdom of the Akashic records, and supporting you in next level leadership, impact in the world, business, wealth, success, and the sprinkles of magic that go with it. So welcome for those of you that don't know me. If you do watch the replay, please type #replay. Please ask us questions as we go along. We will be happy to ask them, and tag us, and we will come back whenever you watch it. Everything is always out in the ether at the same time, so it doesn't matter when you're watching, it's always powerful. So let me just make sure I got the comments up. Yes. So Noona, tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and how you're doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you so much. So I'm an intuitive life coach, and I come from a corporate background. I was a headhunter for 22 years. And the thing that got me into coaching is that I must have done about 14,000 hours of one-to-one interviews. I calculated it in my 22 years.
Oh my God.
I know, honestly. Well, I started when I was 20, and then I got made redundant when I was 42, and been doing this for nearly 3 years. And what I really started to notice is the people who got the job weren't necessarily the one who was best qualified. There was something about them. And so I did NLP, my master in NLP, when I was 26, and I started becoming really obsessed with, now I can verbalize it because I've got the vocabulary, but at the time I didn't. And when they would walk into a room, there was this energy about someone that I just knew they would get the job. And I started wondering what that was. So I started becoming really obsessed with human behavior, really obsessed with the energetics of people, how they would walk into the room. And then I started coaching some candidates who would come in, and I knew they would be great for the job culturally, but the way they'd walked into the room, something was off. So then I would start coaching them and say, this is how you need to, I would basically go through their beliefs and limiting beliefs, and they would get the job. And so then that's how I got into coaching. And then when I got made redundant during COVID, I actually went to see a fortune teller. And
that just gave me goosebumps.
I went to see a fortune teller, and it was so funny. Some of the things he said to me, he said, I didn't know why I went to see him. I was a bit lost. And he said, you're here for me to tell you that your purpose is to be a coach. He had no idea that I was an NLP master practitioner and that I actually was talking about it. So he also said to me, I know, it was amazing. And then at the time he said, very much I see you in the corporate world. And I was thinking, yeah, no, I'm out of the corporate world. And actually I have decided that naturally now I am only going to be working with leaders in the corporate world, because I really want to bring energetics into the corporate world and change the way training is happening in the corporate world. And it's not just about the strategy, it's about energy as well. And working with the leaders, so it trickles down. And on the call, on the seeing this fortune teller, he said to me at the end, he said, who's Caroline? And I said, I have no idea. I don't know a Caroline. And about a year later, I decided my intuition was getting really strong during my coaching. And I thought, okay, I need to really harness this intuition. And I was getting downloads from people and kind of dumbing it down. And then an incident had happened. And someone came on the call, and I just knew that something really horrific had happened to her. So I said, if I'm about to say this and it's right, I'm going to do something. Anyway, I got in touch with someone called Caroline Britton, who is she's all about her magic. And it only 6 months into working with her, I thought, oh my God, he was talking about you. And she's really helped me bring in a lot of magic and intuition and really harness my skills. So yeah, that's a long way.
I really love that. Like, firstly, that you're talking about the energy, and we're so aligned in our conversation, and like working with those leaders who are really here now to ripple that change outwards and do things really differently. But like, I really love what you said about knowing intuitively that it's not always the best qualified people in the room that are going to get the jobs. There's something about them energetically. And it always is the case when you work with somebody, like whether that be, an intuitive healer, a healer, somebody, you're drawn to them, not necessarily because of everything they say or everything they do or the perfection around what they offer. It's like you're just drawn to an energy, and you can't not find out a little bit more and delve a little bit more. And there's so much more to things, isn't there, than just the qualifications. And I think sometimes we're still, even as healers, as teachers, as coaches, we're still sometimes a little bit stuck on the qualifications that we have, that we're not quite qualified enough to do the powerful work that we do.
And there was something, there's a magnetism to them when they walk into the room, and it was like, wow, because I'd met the hiring manager and I'd met the CEO and I'd met the team that they were working in. I could just see that they would fit in. And but also what I learned in my 22 years in that role is that I was able to teach people how to increase their magnetism.
Yes.
Because it can be learned when you're not aware of. And what I realized, it was the beliefs and what they were telling themselves and allowing what had happened in the day bothered them and all of that. So I do feel, some people say you either got it or you haven't, but I do really believe that it can be taught if you're able to take on that information for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Because once we start speaking in energetics, we start, working and navigating and being in those energetics, we realize how powerful we truly are, and like how we become magnetic towards what we want and what we don't want. And that's the beauty of it. I love that, like increasing people's magnetism and teaching them how to do it, because that's through the consciousness of it. So like, what do you feel is like the one of the biggest things around increasing your magnetism? Like, what do you feel is
what do I feel is the one thing?
Yeah, or the one biggest factor. I mean, there's loads of it. We know it's like it's all encompassing. But what for you do you feel is like one of the biggest factors of it?
I from what I saw and from what I've seen in my coaching and my work, it's really trust.
Yeah.
And it's the person who would walk in who was desperate for the job. You could smell that a mile away. The CEO who was looking for a new job because they just felt there was something better for them, but they weren't authentic. You could see that. It's the people who walked into this job and really trusted that no matter what, they'd be okay.
Yeah.
The desperation just slipped away, and they just would. And I see it as well with my coaching. With coaching, you're more teaching people to develop that sense of trust. But now I know. At the time, I didn't quite know what it was, but it really was the people who thought, I trust that when I'm in that interview, I'm going to show up as well as I possibly can. That there's this comfortableness in their own skin because they trust that everything's going to be okay. They trust themselves that in the room they're going to be all right when they interview, and they also trust if they don't get the job, they're going to be okay too. And so that is attractive. It's like if you go on a date on someone and they trust that it's either you or it's not. Either way, they're going to be okay, and they're just here to give themselves fully. That person, you're going to be like, I want to see you again. It is trust. I think there's something really magnetic and also quite sexy about
Yeah,
being
yes, let's not forget that. There is something quite sexy about it. You're absolutely right. But there's something that keeps, like, in that trust, when we trust, because it's trusting ourselves, trusting in the process, but also trusting in ourselves. That gives us, by default, permission to show up as us, because we trust in ourselves, in who we are, that if it's right for us, that the job will be ours. If it's not, then we'll still be okay. But there's a permission. And I think it feels like a permission, in giving ourselves that, like, permission to be us. And we're so, especially in interviews for a role, for a job, that we need to be the person that they're looking for, and that we need to fit into what they're, and to shape. And there's something about really showing up truly as who we are. And I think that underpins a lot of the work that you and I do, and many coaches do. But I think there's thanks for the heart, whoever that is.
Also, it's the trust, and you can show up authentically. But also, what just came to me as you were saying that is, there's such a power in that.
Yes.
And it's a very thin line between it of arrogance, because I used to interview a lot of salespeople, and there was such a thin line between the person who was really good at sales and would come in and would have that arrogance, but they didn't. There wasn't a level of trust, which is why that developed into arrogance. It was like a pretend trust and a pretend powerfulness. But the ones who walked in that really trusted themselves, there was something really powerful about them, where people were like, we need this guy on our team, or we need this girl or woman on our team, because she's going to bring in the sales, because she trusted herself.
Yeah.
And she felt so powerful that, put me in any sales position, I'll be able to make the money and close the deal. There's so much power to the way they speak and how they walk into the room. It's truly incredible. And I feel so privileged to have done this job, because the amount of, I don't think any other roles you can see people come in one after another, and you've got such a good example of, wow, I know the difference between this person and that person, I could very quickly put the pieces together. So I feel really blessed that I did that.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, isn't it? Because, I come from a corporate background as well. And it's like, without, very different in IT, but it's like those pieces that we learn, and we accumulate those tools and those understandings of how things work, aid us and show us and navigate us towards where we're doing to do something completely different. Like the skills that I kind of took on in those days, I mean, like, second to none. I wouldn't know how to navigate a business without those, and project management and all those kind of things. But I love what you said about the power, because that's part of the magnetism. It's not power to diminish, it's power to bring in, like, the people that are the right people for those things. And it's like, it is powerful. But with power comes responsibility. And when we can marry those two things, when we can be powerful and responsible with that power and that knowledge, then it's like, and we lean back into trust that it's all okay. Then it's like, it all mixes in like the little cauldron, the magic pot.
It does. And what's so amazing as well is that the ones that really did have that power and trust and were so magnetic, they would maybe not have a position for them. And I didn't see this a lot, but the ones who really had it, the company was like, we need this person in the company. I don't know what it is. This role actually is too junior for them. We're going to create a new role for them. So it just goes to show that. That's why I'm really, really excited about working with the corporate world. I personally loved working in the corporate world. I really did. And I think if the corporate world was able to train people into them stepping into their power and trusting themselves more, that it would radically change the face of how companies are run, and the way, so many people spend so much time there at work. That's why, I think working with leaders and teaching them that you can actually, but obviously when I do it, I don't do it with the woohoo, because you've got to use different language, which
but there's ways to do that, isn't there? And there's, it's like a language that we speak, but like, and people feel it. Again, language is energetics as well. So like everything we speak, the way we say things in a way that people understand it has a frequency that is on the woo, is on the magic, is on the stirring the cauldron pot and creating magic. So it's all part of it, isn't it? And it's like, it's how we start to work with people, not go, well, that way is wrong. We don't want to know it. Like, we want to change the world, which we do. We want to create and influence the world in different ways that is right for everyone and right, right for the shift that we're going through. But that's not at the expense of saying, well, everyone else is wrong. It's like, how can we allow people to come in and see that things can be done differently, no matter where we are placed? And that's how I think we really do truly change the world for the better, because
I do. And it's meeting them at where they're at. So, I've got CEOs who I coach who come in, and after a few sessions, they'll be like, okay, so tell me about manifesting, and I want to know more about this, and let's work with my angels, and or they'll start saging their office, or but then there's other people who that's not really for them. So it's meeting them where they're at, and I can still tell them to go into trust and that they're connected to source in their language. And this is where I think you can get to, like, well, they don't understand. Everyone has the level that they can, and it's just adapting it. So I think everyone is able to connect to themselves if they're taught it in the right way.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's like we want to come back to ourselves. We're so, like, I don't know, there's such a movement to that, to really come back to what's important to us, to really understand that we are unique beings, that we got to step out of the box, and we can do things our way, even though we're in a space. Thank you, Sonny. Sonny says beautiful insights here. So it's like we've got to, as we step out of that and become more of ourselves, we can do that in any environment if we do it with the trust that we're okay, the authenticity, and that powerful magnetic experience of it. And I know that, I know the show's called Ride the Wave, and it's like, it does feel like a bit of a wave, because when we start to learn new different things, and like starting to tap into the magic or amplifying the magic, because I do believe, I've been having this conversation a lot, that we're all beginners in it. So it was like, I was having a powerful conversation with my group, and we were talking about, how far along the journey we are. And I'm like, well, I'm 20 years in, but I still feel like a beginner sometimes. And it's like really coming at it from a beginner's mind, and it's okay wherever we're at. And it's like, then we just have a different wave to ride. So it's like, do you find that people's waves are erratic at the beginning when they start to learn these new things, or are they open to it? How do you describe riding the wave?
So I think, for me, and because I'm working with a lot of leaders in the corporate world, a lot of the people that I work with, they're really high achievers. So they have pushed themselves to get to where they want. They've spent 20 years getting to where they are in their career, but suddenly they've got it. They've got the job, they've got the money, they've got the house, they've got all of that. And then when you've got all of it, they're looking inside and thinking, okay, my life looks great on paper, but I feel anything but. And that's when they come to me. And those are the people that I love working with, because they have worked so hard to get to where they are, but what got them here is not going to get them there. And so they're kind of at a loss, like they want that spark back. And so I find the wave can get at that, when they come to me at that stage, they've gone through such a lull of and a lot of people think, like, God, this is such first world problems. They don't even want to talk about it, because they're thinking, well, I'm all right, I haven't got, there's nothing drastically wrong, but inside everything feels like it is. And so this is also something which I think, when people do have a good job and they are earning good money, or not even millions, but they're just earning a decent living. They're so embarrassed to say, like, I'm not happy. And this is where I come in and bring the magic back into their life and get them really to reconnect to themselves and understand why they're here. And then what happens is they start feeling better. And then, as we all do, even I do, you move up and down. But the dips, instead of taking 3 weeks of feeling bad, it's having a day, feeling bad, acknowledging it, not making it mean anything about you, and knowing that trusting tomorrow is going to be better. And if not tomorrow, then the next day. So I think this work is so powerful to be able to hold it when you're not feeling great, and to come back up. Because when I was in the corporate world, one of my bosses, great guy, who said to me, the great thing at a bad day is it always ends.
Yes.
Oh God, it's so true. It does always end.
It?
But not only does it end, but then if you can have that attitude, if it only ends and it gets better, and what's my lesson, and how can I, you can't do it in the moment, but know that when you look back in it tomorrow, you're like, oh, I get it. Oh, I see it. So I think when you hold that trust in yourself and in the universe and God, or whatever angels, or whatever it is you want to believe in, the waves, like, oh, I'm down here, but I know I'm going to be up there, and that gives you hope. And then you can it's a smoother ride, as opposed to, like you were saying earlier, a roller coaster.
Like, oh my gosh, and feeling quite sick along the way, and like motion sickness and stuff. And I think that in the corporate world, when I used to be in it, I think that's how I did used to feel. It was so erratic between the highs and the lows, and the good days and the bad days. And then and there was never, everything felt chaotic. And but I was younger then, I could cope with it. I had the capacity. But as I've got older, it is that wave. And if we can know that we, on the way down, there is that motion that we can lift ourselves up again. There's a motion, a movement, a momentum. But otherwise we can just keep going down. And that was the pattern. It was like I almost had to get to rock bottom to be able to go, okay, well, how do I get to the top? It's like, but now I've recognized that actually it's just a meandering journey. And if we were flatlining across life, as some of your clients are probably feeling, it's like there's that as well, isn't it? It's like, on paper my life looks great, but on the underneath, it's not that great. And like, where's my joy? Where's my spark? And there's the shame as well. I think that was a word that came up as you were talking, the shame of like, but my life I should be happy, because everything on paper says I should be, and yet I'm not. And how we release that idea that there is no ultimate that we're attaining. We are looking to ride the wave. Life will always be something.
And that's what happens. You're so right in bringing up the shame. There's real shame and guilt in that. And then comes in the self-sabotage, and they end up either, some of my clients over-consuming, either on drinking or eating, not because they have an issue, but because they're trying to numb the downness of how they are. And then what happens is, they've worked so hard to get their career, they're stuck, there's shame, and then suddenly things start kind of, there's a ceiling. There's a ceiling that comes because the relationships with their partners start failing. They disconnect to their children, because really they've disconnected to themselves. And so once they start feeling better and they start to understand, and they deepen the relationship with themselves, they move into gratitude, move into trust. Then what they find is that the promotion they've been trying to get for the last 2 years, they get it, because they end up feeling better, because they're back into trust. They get their magnetism back. They start sparking again. And then the promotion comes, and then more money comes, or they get the oomph to go and set up something on the side. So it's like you spend so long to get to where you want, and then you're like, oh, I've lost myself. And that's where I come in to kind of get them to go.
It's beautiful. Yeah, really, really beautiful, because sometimes we don't know, like you said something really fun, like beautiful before, which was like, what's got me here is not going to get me there to the next step.
Yeah.
But often what's got us to where we are, it's so unconscious. We don't
Yeah.
even know how we've got there. So then when we try to replicate it, thinking, well, there's another level of that, but I don't even really fully understand what got me here other than hard work and slog and, you know, head down.
Pleasing and, you know, all of that, and burnout, exhaustion, and it can work. You know, that push energy can really work until it just doesn't anymore.
Yeah,
you know?
and it breaks. That's true. And I do think that it's not just indicative of the corporate world. I think, you know, there are a lot of entrepreneurs out there who are lifting that model. And I think I was doing that in the very early days, like lifting that model, because again, that's what we know, and it's just what we do, and how we then implement and grow our businesses on that. And that, we know, doesn't work either. So it's like how we really truly allow ourselves to trust. And it's a process, and each step of the way, each wave, you know, provides us an opportunity, I guess, to really deepen that trust again, to relook at it and go, okay, do I need to trust even more now? Like, what's next? Where do I want to go? Because it's the wave, I guess, on the way up, isn't it? It's like, it's not the wave, it's more like this. And it's like, because we're human, we want to grow, we want to expand, there's always, like, we're seeking the next thing in a good way, when we want, like, we can desire whatever we want, and we can have whatever we want.
Yeah, exactly. I really believe that. And then also what I find, what happens is that they've kind of lost connection to their heart as well. You know, their heart's kind of closed off a bit. So this loving of themselves has been very much about what I can achieve, what I can do, and it becomes a very outward thing. And I guess, you know, a lot of people that I work with are from their mid-30s to mid-40s, and I think in your 20s and 30s you're just getting through it, and then
literally just having a lot of fun.
Exactly. And then when you get to kind of, you know, my age, which is I'm going to be 44 in my end of November, do you kind of think like, oh yeah, now I think I'm now really the time to do the work, to really connect to my heart and feel so much love for myself that I can ask for help. I can that I'm completely okay no matter what, whether I get the job. And then, as you know, once you connect back to your heart, everything comes pouring in as well, because we've opened up a bit. So there's so many different aspects of spirituality and magic that I can bring into it. But I think the corporate world, for me, I feel like they could really do with some.
And sprinkling that, where, you know, around everything, and like, you know, if we can sprinkle some more of that love, that trust in our own hearts through into the corporate world as well, you know, there's so much that people really, you know, so many people want to connect with it. They are craving for it, their souls are craving for it. They don't just necessarily know it. And so knowing that, you know, coaches like yourself are there offering this to the corporate world, and really changing it from the leadership aspect, because, you know, it's quite difficult when if you're part of a team, but you can also do it. But if leaders are really showing the way and doing things differently, then we have a whole different style of leadership that starts to come through. And we need leadership in different forms now. Like,
I really believe that. And I guess my next kind of side that I think one is in leadership in the corporate world, but the other one for me, which I'm really kind of developing a new obsession with now, I have young kids, is schools, is really teaching children as their brains are starting to develop, of, you know, teaching them that what you say to yourself matters, the way you, you know, it was my son's birthday the other day, and he was turning 6, and I was saying, oh, you know, we're talking about, for some reason we're talking about who do you love the most, and he said me, as in himself. And I kept saying to him, like, never ever let that go. And he's like, but what if about you? I was like, especially me. especially me, I shouldn't come first, because how many of us end up putting our parents' love before ourselves? And I was like, especially you should come before me. You should be first. And he asked me the other day, he was saying, what about Santa? I'm like, still you.
Still you. What about Santa?
Still you.
Oh, I love that. This is the beauty of kids. They get it, but we model something different for them, and so they start to take that on. But when we allow them to be that, I love that inquisitiveness is like, is it okay if Santa comes? And it's like, it's beautiful. It really is. And it's like, Sunny says your son is brilliant. And she also says, wouldn't it be amazing if we started sharing heart math or heart wisdom straight from the start with our youth and never stop that teaching at every level of growth? Yeah, that's so powerful.
I love that, Sunny. I really love that. And that's why also I think it's so important doing this work for people at that age between 35 plus, or kids, but generally people are having kids around that age, who may have lost not the chance of learning it when they're kids, and then when they start having kids, I don't get it right all the time, but I definitely try and tell my kids, if they're angry with me, I'm like, well, it's okay to be angry, but you are choosing to be angry, and okay, they're 6, they're not going to get it, but it's just starting these conversations of what you believe is going to come true. Or my daughter was going to a swimming squad, and she's like, I don't think I can do it. I'm like, let's change it. Let's write down different sentences that are going to make you feel good. Just tiny little things. And they, like you said, they get it. Their brains are just so malleable, and they understand it. I was saying to my son, where do you feel other people's energy? Because he can really feel it. And he went, here.
Oh.
And so I said to him, when you go to school, put a cloak over you, imaginary cloak, so that you can just protect your energy, because kids can pick up on energy so much.
Quickly.
And when you start teaching them things like this, they get it. They don't even question you. They're like, it's that boy's or that girl's energy who they were really sad. They didn't say anything, but I knew. And so it's I think kids is the next one, which we really need to start. But once we do it with the adults, it naturally
absolutely comes. And as you say, working with adults in that sort of phase as they're having children, they start to parent very differently and start to create that change. But and I think leadership in schools also needs to change as well, and how teachers are teaching, and all these messages that kids are given at schools by teachers, like, you're not good enough, you can't do that, if you don't get the grades, you'll never be successful. And you get it, because like teachers are sort of judged on their grades that their students are getting, and if they get students who are more creative and not academic, then that reflects on them, and then they stop doing the work that they're doing. We need to change that hierarchy for sure.
I think so.
Oh my goodness, what a powerful conversation. I love
this conversation. I could go for hours.
I know, and that's the beauty of it, isn't it? There's just so much. It's like giving people a flavor and an essence that we, as we lean, I think what I've taken from this is like, as we lean into trust, that gives us that power to really know ourselves and be with ourselves and know that we're okay and we're safe and we've got this no matter what, so that we can ride that wave on the way up and not feel like we're like losing it or like it's great or then it's really bad, and like how we can really stay in our own power through this and what you're teaching your kids. And I think that that's really, really what I've taken from today. And it's so important. Trust is something that we get on a level, but like when we really truly like embody it and we really start to practice it's not always easy. And that's why we need a coach. We need someone to walk with us and say, it's okay.
Absolutely. No, I've loved it. It's such a powerful conversation. And like you say, I think the more we do this work, the more the next generation is going to benefit from it.
Beautiful. Yeah. So if you are out there and you're listening and you're doing this, then just never, ever underestimate the ripple effect that it has on what you're doing, how you're putting that out into the world, how you're part of the shift to really creating a new way of being for us us humans on this planet. So yes, thank you so much. I've really loved it. Noona, tell people how they can find you and follow you.
I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram, just under my name, Noona Nafousi, exactly how it's spelled. I'll be rebranding on the 24th of November, so keep an eye out. New company, new name. So it's all very exciting. So
and also for your new year and your birthday.
Yes, exactly. My birthday's on the 24th of November, so that's what I'm rebranding, and then all
how beautiful.
aligning. Yeah,
what a celebration. Well, I can't wait to see your new branding, your newer and more trusting version of yourself as you leap into the next phase. But this is what's exciting. That's the next wave, isn't it? It's like we're always moving through to something new and transitioning, and that's the beauty of it.
Natasha, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored to have this conversation with you.
Me too. Thank you. Sunny says happy birthday and celebrations. Thank you, Sunny, for joining us. And if you've got any questions at all, if you're watching the replay, type #replay, and I'll see you all again on the show for next week. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.